Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Death before dishonor. I put that on my mama, nigga. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Dishonor. I put that on my mama, nigga. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Death before dishonor. I put that on my mama, nigga.
Georgetown Hoya, Uptown Warrior, strapped up with 40 rounds in the destroyer. Crown holder, more crown royal, more crown royal. Georgetown Hoya, better check my background folder. Import raw pounds of Goya. Strapped up cause most clowns ain't loyal. Put up 40 pounds of Yola. Dope man, my employer. I'm strapped up for my toils. Strap bustin', it'll put you in the soil. Look here, I sit behind the desk, mounting the coke like Tony Montana. Drums for unloading a hammer. Look, boy, I sit behind the desk and call shots like Cobra Commander. Gucci bandana, Soviet issue to hold the banana. Alligator bloodlines in the alley where the thugs grind. Navigate them drugs that you buying. Look, bullshit and them slugs flying like damn the world and fuck today. It's a dirty game, it costs too much to play. Like fuck the world and damn the day. It's no love, no hope for nobody. Bitch, it's sad to say.
Hey, beast mode. I'm still living by the street code. Beast mode.
I sit behind the desk and call shots like Cobra Commander. I sit behind the desk and call shots like Cobra Commander.
In the animated G.I. Joe the movie, Cobra Commander's history had a complete makeover. Now he hails from a secret society called Cobra Law, and it was a horrible accident that drove him to forever wear that helmeted mask. It was this ancient serpent race that predated Homo sapiens. When the humans became dominant on Earth, this race of beings was forced underground and to their secret base called Cobra Law. I suppose it's a take on Shangri-La. The ancient snake race dispatched Cobra Commander to the surface to wreak havoc upon the Earth and to bring down the downfall of humanity so that their serpent society could once again rise to the surface. We can say this is explained as it is later on that the title is a moniker worn by many a person, but spoilers, at the end of the movie, Cobra Commander dies. Marvel wanted the comic book continuity to be consistent, and so they had Larry Hama, despite what he wanted, kill off Cobra Commander in the story I mentioned a moment ago. So that makes sense now. IDW's first Cobra Commander was a successful businessman, but his identity was kept a closely guarded secret. I guess you'd need a good businessman to run ARBCO and extensive enterprises, front companies for Cobra, but a good businessman does not make a good terrorist organization leader. This first Cobra Commander was elected by the Cobra Council for 5 terms, but was ultimately assassinated. A new Cobra Commander was elected named Crake, and he was a ruthless, bloodthirsty version. IDW brought the story of Cobra all the way back to the 14th century, where a Cobra Commander ordered the death of Dante Alighieri because he learned he was working on his famed work, The Divine Comedy. According to the story, Dante was part of the secret society of Cobra. Ancient Yakuza were tied to the Cobra as well during the 18th century, and pirates like Captain Shelley and other historical figures like Thomas Laurel and Charles Pike. Well, we won't get into centuries of history here. You can see that IDW has established Cobra as an ancient secret society that existed through the French Revolution, through the bubonic plague that swept through Europe in the same century as the plot against Dante. While explored in story, the cover to IDW's G.I. Joe Volume 3 number 12 depicts Cobra commanders that have spanned centuries before that. There's a samurai version, there's another one wearing the Lorica Squamata, which was the type of armor worn by Roman soldiers in the classic BC era. So there was a G.I. Joe covert deep operative with the call sign Chuckles. Chuckles infiltrated Cobra after a conflict with Xamot and Tomax, but that conflict with Chuckles prompted them to stage a coup against Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander had put trust in his new agent Chuckles, whom he had ordered to his side to stand against Xamot and Tomax. Except this is just what Chuckles wanted, and he shot Cobra Commander right through the head. Baroness and Tomax managed to escape with Cobra Commander's body before Chuckles blew up the entire island with an underground Cobra nuclear blast. And this is when the Cobra Council elected Crake as the new Cobra Commander. The British version of G.I. Joe is called Action Force and features the arch-enemy terrorist group Red Shadows. Red Shadows was ruled by Baron Ironblood. When Baron Ironblood resurrected Red Shadow into Cobra, he also became a Cobra Commander. In 2009, the first live-action depiction of Cobra Commander, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, was released. However, for much of the film, he's simply referred to as the Doctor. He didn't become Cobra Commander until much later. And in the crossover with the Transformers, yes, that did happen, Old Snake was a pastiche of Cobra Commander. Hasbro partnered with Marvel Comics to create backstories to help sell their new 3.75-inch action figure line. Spurred on by the success of Kenner's Star Wars figures, Hasbro wanted a new toy line all of their own. Marvel editor Archie Goodwin put Larry Hama on the job when lots of other creators in the bullpen said, no thanks. When Larry Hama first presented his designs and concept, which was a repackaged idea he had for a Nick Fury story, to Archie's mail-away offer. Kids needed to collect proofs of purchase to mail them in, what the line called flag points. You actually would send that in with a check for 50 cents to cover the shipping, and your free Cobra Commander would show up in the mail a little while later. This mail-in was the last of the line that lacked elbow articulation. In 1982, there was a Sears exclusive playset and a missile command headquarters that included Cobra Commander figures. From then on until the line's demise in the mid-90s, Cobra Commander was a mail-in exclusive figure.
My trial! It's over, and the verdict is guilty. Not the spores! No! Just as I was once a man.
It's time for your lunch.
And once we've transformed you back to a human being, Destro and Serpento will wish they'd never been born.
I was once a man. And yet, Destro and Serpento will do well to beware. Cobra Commander is reborn!
Cobra Commander, I found this in my hovercraft.
One of my uniforms! This is exactly the resourcefulness I need in my first commanding officer of the Python Patrol!
Cobra Commander is actually the head of the infamous Cobra organization, which is devoted to terrorizing the globe. Cobra Commander is actually the head—
I got him! San Diego Comic-Con 2024 Cobra Commander Once a Man! Number 130 printed plastic cover. It opens like a book to all this man's pain. Beautiful artwork, delicious. A triple lenticular. The lower torso is exactly the same as the retro and the one that came in the Hiss tank, except it has additional paint decal, skin-tight Spanx socks spats combo. He's got his tiny blaster pew-pew, which looks more like a hairdryer. It can loosely fit into the backpack, stiletto knife, 6 pairs of very expressive hands, his regular helmet, the print on top slightly off-center. Got this awesome cracked face shield with details and paint apps on the inside. Mutated snake form with 2 points of articulation.
Egad, I've got a question.
This torn up jacket can completely come off. He does have these 2 long scales that are unpainted. Look at the color detail on those eyes. Barely make out the Cobra symbol, which is all washed out, dirty, and gross. I look forward to having this guy slither around my collection.
miłych talii razy jestem w i sarowstę kapsydu incyliraminy. Anybody listening to this?
He's the supreme leader of Cobra and the sworn enemy of democracy. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we will explore the comic book origins of the global terrorist known as Cobra Commander.
You will have to answer for this to your Congress, your courts.
Correction. They will have to answer to me.
What is it you want?
I want it all.
As with most comic book characters, there are often reimaginings and different versions to a character's past. We have chosen to primarily follow the storylines which unfolded in 1982's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero #1, which was later expanded upon in 1987's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero #55, as well as in 2012's Cobra Annual #1.
You incompetent steelhead! Your bungling has cost me dearly!
Premature panic is the sign of an immature mind.
The origins of Cobra Commander are shrouded in mystery and often contradicted by the villain himself, perhaps in an attempt to perpetually keep his enemies in the dark when it comes to their eternal nemesis. Cobra Commander's first comic book appearance was right alongside the Joes, in a story called Operation Lady Doomsday from G.I. Joe #1, during which the Commander and his Cobra comrade, the Baroness, kidnap a renowned nuclear physicist by the name of Dr. Adele Burkhart. G.I. Joe members Scarlet and Snake Eyes embark upon a daring rescue mission to save Dr. Burkhart. However, they soon find themselves face to face with the Commander himself, who threatens to kill the Doctor should the Joes not drop their weapons. A skirmish soon follows between the two teams, with leader.
Soon the world will cower in the face of Zeus.
Cobra Commander would be given a slightly more detailed backstory in issue number 55 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, where it's revealed that a young Cobra Commander actually worked as a used car salesman prior to his career of international terror. This revelation is spoken in rather casual conversation to the Commander's right-hand man Destro, as the two are driving around in disguise before being stopped by a state trooper. The mood quickly turns serious, however, when the trooper seems to recognize the Commander from a wallet photo found at the scene of a horrific fiery car crash a year prior, the victim of which was a young man by the name of Billy. The trooper reveals that Billy, aka Cobra Commander's tortured and estranged son, lay comatose in a local hospital after suffering severe eye and leg trauma. It's here where a surprisingly human side to the Commander is shown, as the Cobra leader takes a detour with Destro to the hospital, where he shares an apologetic and emotional moment with his unresponsive son. Destro reminds the Commander of his confrontations with Billy in the past, yet Cobra's chief in command remains penitent and regretful of his actions, remarking how he wishes things could have been different between father and son. Turns out the Cobra Commander has a heart after all. Who knew?
Storm Shadow. Never a doubt.
Cobra Commander.
A modern-day take on Cobra Commander's mythos is offered in a 2012 annual publication. In this series, the title Commander isn't limited to just one man, but bestowed upon different leaders of a far-reaching criminal sect, all with varying methods of command. In Cobra Annual #1, the origins of a man who would eventually succeed Cobra Commander is detailed in the life of a young Crake, a young man born into the violent and tumultuous drug gangs of Southeast Asia. Crake's ruthless yet efficient life as a drug soldier quickly brought the man to the attention of the Cobra Council, the shadowy upper echelon of Cobra, who place in power the various commanders who head the organization. Cobra's Major Blood sets off Crake's violent streak by informing him of a traitor within his gang, after which the young man proceeds to eliminate each of them without mercy.
I must replenish the pods.
That can wait. First, I'll dispose of Duke. Then we can get on with our conquest of the world.
Crake is later captured by the Baroness and invited to join Cobra's ranks. His response isn't exactly positive at first, but the soldier eventually joins forces with Cobra, undergoes facial reconstructive surgery, and dons the battle armor, which would eventually culminate with his taking on the mantle of Commander from every other contender.
The time has come for the Cobra to rise up and reveal himself.
You will call me Commander.
Are you a fan of the brilliant...
Hi everyone, and welcome to another marvelous video. We've all spent our fair share of time fiddling with G.I. Joe action figures as a kid. Since Stan Weston's original design in 1963, there have been several different iterations, designs, and characters, which eventually made the G.I. Joe franchise a grand success. Diving into the story revolving around the franchise, the legendary villain is the Cobra Commander, seeking ways to execute world domination. He's calm, composed, and shy until his rage overcomes him, which turns him into a ruthless being, with no mercy for life or any values. In today's video, we will be diving into the revamped origin story of Cobra Commander from writer Joshua Williamson and artist Andrea Milana. So without any further delay, let's begin. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, the plot here is entirely different. 1982's origins showcase the mysterious man follows him and sabotages his car. Seems like something terrible is about to happen. As the bartender realizes that Jimmy had not paid for his drink, he tries to follow him outside, and guess what? He finds Jimmy's dead body lying on the snow. And beside him, there's a symbol of a cobra drawn from dead Jimmy's blood. As you have realized by now, this mysterious man is the Cobra Commander, and he's out on a mission that has not been revealed yet. The scene shifts to a flashback in the secret society of Cobra Law. For those unaware, Cobra Law is an ancient society that once ruled Earth. Later, the organization shifted to the caves of the Himalayas. The flashback showcased an angry mob raging against the scientists of Cobra Law for bringing their monstrosity to their people. All the scientists, in panic, sought to escape, and that was when we got to see Cobra Commander's ruthlessness. He coldly shot one of the scientists who suggested escaping, and advised his comrades to use lethal weapons against the angry mob. He asked them to open the gates, as he threw one of his weaponized spores at the mob, killing many. Unfortunately, his comrade who held the second grenade failed to understand the commander's orders and had the spore bomb far too long in his hand, which suddenly exploded. Next, we see the commander brutally injured and taken in for recovery. As he recovered, he was given a metal helmet to hide his shame. Soon, one of the officials of Cobra Law, named Python, came to the commander and asked for his presence before their leader, Lord Globulus. Once he showed up, Lord Globulus reminded Cobra Commander how he had taken him into the Cobra Law when he was wandering aimlessly in life, and how his recent actions had brought downfall to their organization. Lord Globulus stated that Cobra Law stood in favor of respecting all organic life forms, and the commander's blasphemous technology and vile experiments have caused innumerable harm and loss of lives of their people. He continued that he was completely aware of the commander's manipulation in instigating the riots in the first place, and the only reason why he rescued and healed him was so that he could watch him being executed. The royal guards immediately charged at the commander, who declared to the Lord that he was not much of a fighter and that he could go hand to hand with them. And with that awesome dialogue, the commander next threw a series of small insectoid robots at them that attacked, infested, and killed the royal guards from within. The commander boldly stated to Lord Globulus that Cobra Law had spent too long in hiding and segregation from the outside, for which it had begun dwindling due to its shortage of resources. He added that the mob attack and civil war were imminent unless they could make Cobra Law strong again. Commander offered Lord Globulus an opportunity to rule Earth once again like before, if he allowed the commander to live and pursue his special mission in the world outside. Globulus agreed, and the scene shifted to Commander in his lab, experimenting on a specimen, which was none other than Megatron. Cobra Commander's special mission was to track down all other robot beings like Megatron and build an army of his own. As the commander left the compound, Megatron could be seen smiling. Back to the present, the Cobra Commander takes a break to watch the sunset. He had taken Jimmy's vehicle and was assisted by his handler, sent by Globulus to keep an eye on him. The handler reminds him of the long journey ahead, and that stopping to take a break would only waste time. Although the commander did not kill the handler, he paid no attention to his suggestion. The two began their journey to Florida, with the commander believing that by the time his plans worked out, the world would fear only one name, the Cobra Commander. Marvelous verdict. So we finally come to the end of the video, and we hope you've liked
Of the 1,000-year rule of Cobra, all shall be crushed beneath Serpento's iron.
Welcome to another exciting episode from Marvelous Videos. I'm your host, Tia Ayer, Serpentor, the charismatic cult leader in G.I. Joe. Did you know that Cobra was temporarily commanded by an entity whose genetic material was derived from some of history's most legendary leaders? Dr. Mindbender developed Serpentor as the leader of the terrorist group, Cobra. In order to build this being, Cobra combed the world for traces of Vlad Tepes, Rasputin, Napoleon Bonaparte, Julius Caesar, Hannibal, Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun, and Alexander the Great. He was never meant to be Cobra Commander's replacement. He was supposed to be a more iconic figure to motivate the troops. The intention was for Cobra Commander to retain his power. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please
Weekly, I'll obey the commands of a true emperor. Serpentor! Serpentor!
the big arrival in the animated series. Serpentor is a recurrent nemesis in the G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, toys, graphic novels, and animated series. The character was introduced in 1986 and governs as Emperor of Cobra. Serpentor was conceived as the ultimate Cobra commander. Dr. Mindbender with Dustro searched the tombs of history's most outstanding leaders for cells bearing their DNA traces. These long-dead genetic codes were mixed to create a clone with Napoleon's intelligence, Julius Caesar's ruthlessness, Hannibal's courage, and Attila the Hun's shrewdness. In Sunbow Productions, Arise, Serpentor, Arise, we are first introduced to Serpentor. This is a 5-part miniseries. Ron Friedman wrote this miniseries, which follows his typical format. Serpentor is the main villain in Season 2 of the original G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero animated series from the 1980s. Dick Gautier voiced Serpentor in the second season opener. Dr. Mindbender developed the animated Serpentor to be a new, better leader of Cobra through a milestone in cloning technology. He was envisioned as the ideal warrior, culled from the corpses of some of history's greatest generals and conquerors, as well as other significant historical characters like Alexander the Great, Attila the Hun, Eric the Red, Genghis Khan, Geronimo, Grigory Rasputin, Hannibal, Ivan the Terrible, Julius Caesar, Montezuma, Napoleon Bonaparte, Philip II of Macedon, Vlad the Impaler, Zenith Uman Toth, who is a fictional creation. Sun Tzu's DNA was also supposed to be a component of Serpentor's design in the animated universe, but the attempt to collect his DNA was prevented by Sergeant Slaughter, and his DNA was then decided to be used as a substitute. Cobra Commander botched the initial effort to make Serpentor by surreptitiously dumping a mutated virus into Sergeant Slaughter's DNA chamber, resulting in a rampage across Cobra Island till it disintegrated. Cobra Commander is abandoned by Scrap Iron, who tells Dr. Mindbender what happened before Dr. Mindbender's second attempt. The invention is a success, with the capture of Sergeant Slaughter, and finally, Serpentor is created. Serpentor is exceedingly intolerant and forceful as a consequence of Sun Tzu's DNA not being present within him. Most of his directives begin with the words, "This I command." In contradiction to Cobra Commander, he also demonstrates some of Slaughter's eagerness to command from the front lines. Serpentor accepts a battle from Slaughter shortly after being created and given his distinctive clothing, and the two battle across the Terrordrome, wherein Serpentor demonstrates the strength that he receives from the Sergeant's DNA during most of the fight. However, in the absence of Sun Tzu's methodical influence, Serpentor is prone to impulsive behavior, as is seen by his first significant act, which is leading Cobra in an invasion of Washington, D.C. He was successful in taking the city and requested the resignation of the president, who was not in town at the time, with the vice president, Congress, and G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe successfully counteracts Cobra, rendering the operation a complete failure. But just when the Joes are ready to take Serpentor, a surprising surge of fire forces them back. It is the work of Cobra Commander, who persuaded Mindbender to release him because he understands how to wield the weapon. Cobra Commander persuades Serpentor to make him his scapegoat, as there will be no one to punish him. Serpentor may assume the facial traits of anyone whose DNA is incorporated in his genetic composition, according to a later episode titled My Favorite Things. A Viking warrior renowned as Ulrich the Batterer and the reptile ruler Takshaka, the Indian legend, are both revealed as donors to Serpentor's development. Across the whole of Season 2, the Cobra Commander makes multiple efforts to murder Serpentor using various schemes. Serpentor in the animated project G.I. Joe, the movie explored. Dick Gautier voices Serpentor in the movie too. Serpentor has taken charge of Cobra following the conclusion of the previous season and a thwarted strike on the Statue of Liberty, and Cobra Commander plots to remove his usurper. Pythona battles her way further into Terrordrome, where Serpentor knows her from a buried memory. She instructs him to lead Cobra soldiers in an effort to capture the broadcast energy transmitter, which is an advanced energy generator being tested by G.I. Joe in the Himalayas. Despite their colossal assault, Cobra is pushed off and Serpentor is imprisoned. Following the fleeing Cobra forces deeper through the Himalayan mountains, a small squad of Joes commanded by Roadblock is savagely ambushed and abducted by strange monsters with apparent links to Cobra Commander. Meanwhile, at G.I. Joe headquarters, a fresh squad of rookie Joes, known as the Rawhides, is introduced to the crew. They go through intensive training under the Beachhead's sharp observation. Lieutenant Falcon is noticeably missing from training because he has provided an unapproved tour of Serpentor's prison facility to an ordinary young female named Heather, who's actually the Dreadnought Zarana under disguise. Duke discovers Falcon's neglect of duty and assigns him to guard duty as a penalty. Elsewhere in the Himalayas, a bulk of Cobras have been imprisoned as guests by Cobra La, an archaic race of snake beings hell-bent on destroying human civilization. The supreme monarch of Cobra La, Golobulus, and his assistant, Pythonia, narrate the origins of their race. Cobra Law are Earth's past overlords, thanks in part to their great scientific understanding, which enables them to control and turn live animals into advanced biological technology. However, the start of the Ice Age obliterated their civilization, driving the few survivors to hide in caverns deep beneath the Himalayas. Cobra Commander is also revealed to be a Cobra Law citizen who was dispatched to capture Earth for them. Due to his dismissal rate of success, the commander will be prosecuted as a felon and condemned in accordance with Cobra Law's custom. Globulus also professes to be the actual creator of Serpentor, having twisted Dr. Mindbender's hallucinations to instill him with the information and talent required to create Serpentor. Zorana directs the Dreadnoks, Pythona, as well as the monstrous nemesis Enforcer into Serpentor's incarceration facility, using knowledge gained from her meeting with Falcon. Falcon, who is meant to be guarding the facility's entrance, is instead pestering teammate Rawhide Jinx inside the motor pool. Serpentor is set free, and the Cobras flee. Falcons get arrested for failing to report to work. Globulus announces his plan to recapture Earth to Serpentor and the rest of Cobra. He will release the same spores that altered Cobra Commander, where they will rain down on the Earth and degrade the human race to the point of mindless animals. He instructs Serpentor to retrieve the BET in order to help in the development of the spores. As a punishment for failing to kill mankind, Cobra Commander is subjected to a batch of mutated particles that progressively convert him into an actual snake. He is then led to the cell and placed within a deterrent. The kidnapped Joes attempt to flee Cobra Law as the gate is unlocked, but they are apprehended by biological booby traps and just narrowly escaped arrest. Duke speaks in Falcon's defense at Joe headquarters, claiming that he really is Falcon's half-brother. Falcon's punishment, rather than being court-martialed, comprises a brutal retraining regimen at the hands of Sergeant Slaughter. Falcon meets the Renegades and the Sarge's other troops, Mercer, Red Dog, and Taurus. The Renegades, Sergeant Slaughter, and Falcon invade the Cobra Terrordrome on Cobra Island at Duke's behest. They find that Cobra planned a second effort to get the BET. Despite Falcon's temporary captivity, the Joes flee with their data and demolish the Terrordrome. Cobra successfully obtains the BET gadget with the help of huge serpent worms and odd airplanes. At the same time, Serpentor badly injures Duke while protecting Falcon. Flint, Iceberg, and Lifeline find Roadblock as well as Cobra Commander and transmit the position of Cobra Law as well as the BET, following General Hawk's mobilization of every Joe, excluding the Rawhides, in an invasion on Cobra Law. However, they are ambushed and trapped by the traps from earlier as they approach the colossal ice dome. The Rawhides meet Roadblock and Flint and slip inside Cobra Law, in which one of them, named Tunnel Rat, uncovers a river tunnel. Falcon, Jinx, and Sergeant Slaughter beat Nemesis Enforcer, Pythona, and Serpentor after liberating the kidnapped Joes. Falcon then attacks Globulus. After achieving victory, the cadet destroys not only the BET, but also the spore capsules in space. Cobra Icelaw's dome is destroyed and the Joes triumph. Comic book origins of Serpentor. Even in the Marvel Comics, Dr. Mindbender created Serpentor in an effort to create the perfect soldier of Cobra. Mindbender and Destro plundered the graves of legendary warriors and used the corpse of Cobra, Rebel Storm Shadow. Mindbender merged the DNA inside a lab and planted his own skills and loyalties, and the warriors were raised in Springfield, the Cobra town. Serpentor offered to command the Cobra warriors in a delaying effort to allow the people to be evacuated. In combat, he exhibited his immense military talents by anticipating and countering the Joes' attacks, while also demonstrating considerable risk and charm, quickly garnering the troops' respect. He succeeds in duping the Joes regarding the exact location of the same Cobra evacuation, causing Cobra to successfully escape. Serpentor would have been accidentally abandoned, but Destro made certain he was not. When Serpentor arrived on Cobra Island, a powerful battle erupted involving him and Cobra Commander. The latter made numerous efforts to murder Serpentor. Serpentor predicted them and made remarks that ensured that even if he was murdered by Cobra Commander, Cobra would still be destabilized. Zartan, as well as the Dreadnoks, were then commanded by Cobra Commander to pose as Joe in order to murder Serpentor, but Destro prevented them from doing so. Despite Cobra Commander's doubts, Serpentor used the effort to call for an invasion of the Joe camp camp, the Pit manipulating the situation to his advantage once more. An attack was launched, with both Serpentor as well as Cobra Commander attempting to seize the lead, resulting in both seeking to dethrone the other. Serpentor duped Cobra Commander into entering the Pit, where he became imprisoned when the Joes set off a bomb to destroy the base. Now that Cobra Commander was missing and presumed dead, Serpentor assumed command of the organization and embarked on new ventures such as arms sales and sales of terror drones to different nations, and the establishment of an embassy in New York to undertake Cobra operations discreetly and with diplomatic immunity. He also managed to command field operations, such as preventing a Joe team from seizing portions of a terror drone at Sierra Gordo. He also attempted to seize the new power mobile source, Power Station Alpha, forming a partnership with the Invasion Decepticon Transformers to do so. But when it became evident that the Decepticons intended to use Alpha to destroy Earth, Cobra formed another alliance with the competing Autobot Transformers as well as G.I. Joe to stop them. In New York, when Serpentor substituted the Baroness as Chief of Affairs with Serana, he created a possible adversary. Then, alleging to be Cobra Commander, a guy landed on Cobra Island. He responded to every question accurately, but Serpentor remained hesitant to cede leadership. On the other hand, the Baroness knew how Cobra Commander appeared beneath his headgear and was tasked with confirming their rival's identity. To Serpentor's chagrin, she proclaimed that the genuine Cobra Commander had returned. Serpentor attempted to bring down his opponent for command once more by putting him in peril by forcing him to lead an expedition into space, but rather his rival demonstrated leadership and won the respect of his men. Serpentor and Mindbender spied on the adversary and discovered that he was an imposter, Fred the Seventh, who was a Crimson Guard from the Fred series. They did not, however, expose him due to the overwhelming support that he had received. Serpentor kept plotting to reclaim full control of Cobra, completely oblivious that Fred had hidden a recording device within one of the BAT bodyguards. Mindbender created the Star Viper, who was sent to penetrate the new Joe outpost and steal a new secret transceiver, Black Box. Once the Star Viper came to Cobra Island, he was greeted as a hero. However, animosity between Serpentor and Fred erupted during the ceremony, sparking the Cobra Civil War. Serpentor and Mindbender quickly realized that they were outnumbered, so Mindbender traveled to the United States with the Black Box to strike a deal. The U.S. administration reasoned that Serpentor, as a somewhat lawful monarch, was preferable to Cobra Commander, a brutal dictator. So a full rank of Joes was dispatched to the Isle to help Serpentor. There were disagreements about the hierarchy of command, as well as Serpentor's decision to use the captive Baroness as a scapegoat attached to his HISS vehicle, but bombardment from Fred's troops and the presence of a third force led to Serpentor agreeing to a combined command with Hawk. Serpentor, the Joes, and Destro soon had Fred trapped in between them, leading the latter's command to panic. Serpentor, however, got overconfident in his position. Zartan took the initiative on Fred's side and shot an arrow. Serpentor said that he could sense triumph approaching, similar to the day of the Normans' triumph at the Battle of Hastings, when King Harold was killed with an arrow in the eye. He was slain in the same manner. Mindbender quickly made a deal with Fred, thereby resolving the Civil War. Mindbender obtained permission to keep Serpentor's body for further experimentation in the aftermath. Serpentor, from Devil's Due Publishing G.I. Joe vs. Transformers crossover, has a totally different origin story. The U.S. government creates an android dubbed Serpentor in the third G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers miniseries, utilizing processors obtained from Megatron and loaded with information about Earth and Cybertron's best military generals. Serpentor, believing himself to be Megatron's son and successor, embarks on a journey to get the Matrix believing that it would offer him the power he requires to govern. He goes to Cybertron, at which point he reassembles the numerous broken Decepticon troops. He finally gains control of the Matrix, changing himself to Serpentor Prime, a Transformer-sized robot with a spark of life. This causes him to reconsider his conquest approach, but Cobra Commander assumes control over Serpentor's Prime's form with a remotely controlled device installed on Earth. Hawk was able to unlock the Matrix, changing Hawk into a strong leader and putting the commander unconscious, so his fury did not continue long. Beyond this, Serpentor's fate is unclear. Serpentor presided over the aborted trial of Destro, who was convicted of treason in his attempt to seize the broadcast energy transmitter in the British Action Force Comics universe. Serpentor interrupted the trial and said that Destro was correct regarding the necessity for the BET. Later, Serpentor commissioned weaponsmith to build a stronger laser fueled by diamonds and informed him that he could locate a big diamond in Amsterdam. Serpentor's focus wavered and the chamber faded into obscurity, to be substituted by another ornamented with serpents that he recognized. A lady stood in front of him, telling him repetitively that Cobra needed the broadcast energy transmitter, and he proclaimed her to be the woman of his desires. Serpentor's real identity is Stephen Menasian in the IDW universe, and he is the commander of the Coil, Cobra's scriptural wing, and a hugely popular cult known to the general populace as a self-help organization. The Coil worship Gobulus, a divinity who created Cobra Law before human stupidity ruined it. Serpentor professes to be Gobulus's final disciple, a resurrection of the gods' prior heroes such as Napoleon, as well as Alexander the Great. Serpentor is a representative of the Cobra Council, which appoints the Cobra commander, who has always been higher in rank than Serpentor. In the event that a new commander must be elected, Serpentor's point of view carries a substantial amount of weight. If you back someone, their stock will undoubtedly rise in the opinion of the Cobra court. Serpentor isn't keen on being the new commander and begins supporting the Baroness, Major Blood, and Tomax in obtaining the job so that the future leader will need him.
Kneel before your master, you pathetic losers! You first, Mr. President.
What makes him such a deadly enemy? Serpentor is a real psychopath, having no sorrow for his acts and little concern for his followers, which he regards as disposable in the struggle against G.I. Joe. His ego has no bounds, since he feels that everyone, including his creator, Dr. Mindbender, is beneath him. He sees himself as a genuine emperor, since he contains the memories of his different DNA sources, who were nothing other than the most prominent tyrants and dictators in history. In all renditions of his origin, he is immensely powerful and brilliant. He has access to the memories of his different DNA donors, which allows him to be a brilliant strategist while also driving him nuts. He could also modify his looks to match the DNA templates from which he was created.
There can be no negotiation, you insolent microbe! I am not symbolic! I am your emperor!
Conclusion. Serpentor is a superb strategist and maestro of political machinations, and he took leadership of Cobra against Cobra Commander as he intended to. Serpentor is the result of a Cobra scheme to produce the ideal soldier. A conspiracy of Cobra experts headed by Dr. Mindbender, as well as Destro, invaded nearly every tomb in search of the greatest warriors in history. They gathered every shred of DNA that they could find in order to create the genetic blueprint for this super soldier. Serpentor is filled with the experiences and memories of these remarkable individuals, thanks to Dr. Mindbender's intellect. Serpentor has acute military intelligence, boldness, daring, charm, political know-how, and combat capacity that is much beyond Cobra Commander. His scientists failed to realize that the men from whose Serpentor's DNA sprang from were also intelligent and cruel leaders with vast aspirations. Serpentor's blood, after all, calls up the majesty of conquest, the conquering of the whole world. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.